Thank you. That was quicker than I expected. I thought I had to give you guys like a 5-minute warning like the kids. I'm Ruben Levinson, Washington Avenue Advisors. We're so glad to have you all here today. And we've got a lot to get through, so I want to get this started right on time. We've got an amazing person here to share some time with us and share his journey with us. And I was just sharing with some others that, you know, it's not easy to get people like this to come to Lansing. So I want to say to my team and Washington Avenue Advisors and my partners, like, thanks for all the hard work we do to get someone like Brian here. And then, actually, really quick, we've got a couple partners here that help support this event. Calder, you're here, Max, and where are you? Will you stand up, please? We've got some partners that are help supporting this event. Stay up, because I'm going to ask you to say a thing. And then Blake of Bold Growth, would you stand up, please? These are people who we've worked with over the years and who thought that these events were important enough to support them. We appreciate the support, and everybody here is going to get a thank you after they get to see what they're in for today. But Max, would you please, just a couple words on Calder and the work you do in the community?
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of Washington Avenue. So, Calder Capital is a lower middle market mergers and acquisitions firm. So we're primarily working with owners, enterprise value 2 to 50 million. Headquartered in Grand Rapids, have 11 offices now. It's, I think, more than a transaction, not an entrepreneur. So this type of talk is really interesting to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Yeah, it's very important work that you're doing. The second half of this session, we're actually talking about what it takes to position your business for acquisition or merger or sales. So glad you're here. Probably going to pick on you a little bit in that second half. And Blake with Bold Growth.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Ruben and I work together quite a bit. I'm super excited to be a part of this event. I think we have an amazing speaker as well. Bold Growth is a creative and tech studio. We work with owner-operated legal and financial services businesses. Our focus is around helping them build better customer experiences and driving growth. I want to extend to you today, even if you're not in the financial or legal service space, we have a customer health kit on our website. We just launched a new tool. It actually grades how customer-centric your business is. So no matter what, it's a completely free tool. No matter what industry you're in, we're happy to chat and help on that. But Ruben, thank you for looking at part of this event today.
Thank you. And then Washington Avenue Advisors, partners and team, would you stand up real quick so they know who you are here? Jim and Brian, Ben, Dave Rush. Oh, you got, geez, we filled a third of the room with us here. Nick, Hope, and Amanda, and Brandon, thank you. These are all the Washington Avenue Advisors teams who are working with local entrepreneurs and business owners to help them actualize their legacy. That's what we call it. And we're really happy to bring Brian in here today. Brian, we're going to get saving the best for last here. I got to make sure I don't miss anything. Real quick show of hands, who's been to our leadership series talks in the past? Okay, so you kind of know what to expect. We started this last year, right, Nick? Was it 23, right? That's right. With Sergeant Eric Maddox was the first speaker we had back at the Graduate in East Lansing, the interrogator who found Saddam, right? So we've had quite a few amazing speakers since then. These are the real like TED Talk style speakers. They're coming in and they're sharing their story with you. What we found with them is they're all very open, very vulnerable. They're going to share a lot with you. It's not just the successes, but the failures. I got to spend a little time with Mr. Smith yesterday. He trusted me. I picked him up in Grand Rapids after he landed in the big plane. We picked him up in the little plane, and he jumped right in. He didn't even ask questions. He didn't even ask to see my pilot's license. We jumped in, we went for a nice flight, and I got to hear a little preview of what he's going to share, and I think that you'll find that vulnerability and sharing the real story is what we're going to get from him today. Quick show of hands, how many in here would be business owners first? I'm going to assume there's a lot, right? Business owners, entrepreneurs. How many early stage, because I like to see we've got some earlier stage founders in here too. I think it's really good for you to come hear from someone like this, because you're going to hear a lot of what it takes to get from that early stage to a mature business. And UGG's is can we call it a mature business at this point? Yeah, I think so. So I think that's great. And then Nick, oh no, I got that, we're covered, good, we got everything. All right, I get to bring you up. Well, Brian Smith, if you didn't catch it, founder of Uggs boots, Uggs footwear, I don't know what to call it anymore. You guys make too many products, too many things, but they're doing a whole lot more today, I think, than when he started, and he's gonna share that story with you. Really happy to have you. Brian, come on up. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's the perfect audience for me. Lots of entrepreneurs, early stage. I have been traveling the world, actually, just telling the origin story of UGG. And the theme is the power of perseverance. And I want to marry that with the most common question I get asked these days: hey Brian, how do you start a $1 billion business? And the answer is you can't, because it takes two elements. One is a breakthrough product or a technology, a software program or something like that. And you can control that. You can hire engineers, you can hire developers and everything, and create that part of it. But the other essential that needs to happen to become a $1 billion revenue business is there has to be some worldwide societal shift that picks up what it is you've done and takes it out into the world. And you, when you're starting a business, cannot predict what that's going to be. And I'm going to give you some really good examples of that as we go on. So I want you all to come back with me 47 years, if you can believe that, to Perth in Western Australia. And I spent 10 years working as an accountant and studying at night. And after 10 years, I finally graduated, and I quit the same day. Because I did not want to be an accountant. And so for a couple of weeks I was, driving around Perth trying to figure out what am I going to do. And one afternoon I was driving along the highway going back to my house. And how many people in this room have been influenced by music, the words of a song? Look at all those hands. So I was driving up the Canning Highway in my little red MGB with the top down in the summertime. And I heard this music come on the radio. And I got goosebumps. And I didn't go home, I drove straight to the record store and I bought my first album. And the words of the second song were tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. You are young and life is long and there is time to kill today. Oh, shit, he's talking to me. And then one day you find 10 years have got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. And when I heard that, I got goosebumps again. I started thinking of all my friends who were tracking off to partnerships in the accounting world, and other friends who had started their businesses right out of high school and they were doing great. And I felt like I'd been running on the spot for 10 years. And ironically, at that time, I just bought a book on yoga. Doing all those stretching exercises made me breathe really deep, so I inadvertently fell into meditation. And I started to do that every day. And one morning I was meditating and I'm trying to think, what can I do? And bam, I got these goosebumps again. And I thought, oh my God, all the best trends are coming out of California. Levi jeans, waterbeds, all the surf brands and skate brands, and I thought, all these big products are coming to Australia from California. So I just made the decision right there, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to find the next big thing and I'm going to bring it back to Australia and make my fortune. And so literally within a couple of weeks I arrived at LAX, I had my surfboard and my suitcase, and I remember renting this little house in Santa Monica, and I also took a short-term lease on a Dodge van. And the first thing I did was just drive straight to Malibu, because I'd been reading Surfer magazine and surfing magazine since I was like 8 years old, just dying to be in that surfer. And so I spent, July, August, September, October, surfing pretty much every day and looking around at billboards and newspapers and the Wall Street Journal looking for the next idea, the next big thing. And after it finally got to November, and the water was getting really cold, and the wind was, really chilly, and I just finished surfing with my buddy Doug, and I was pulling on my UGG boots that I brought from Australia. And I just got this massive dose of goosebumps again, because I realised 1 in 2 Australians had some sort of sheepskin footwear, and there was none in America. And I looked at my buddy Doug and I said, man, we've got to go into business. We're going to be instant millionaires. And you all know that story, right? You've all thought that, right? And so we got back to my house and did a bit of research, and we called a couple of factories in Australia. And this one guy, George Bircher from Country Leather, decided to let us be the distributor for him. And so we sent some money down and got 6 pairs of samples. And when they finally arrived, this is, there we go. This big brown stain on the top is glue. All around the bottom is glue, right? There's no heel counter, there's no binding on the top. But this was the crude stage of UGG boots at that time. And I use this slide because so many of you, if you're in the early stages of your business, and you're trying to get the product out, but it's not perfect yet, and you really want to get it out, but it's not perfect yet, just damn well do it, because you'll get so much feedback from your customers that are the early adopters, that you'll fix all the glitches so much faster than if you try and work on it yourself. So Doug was going to be the salesman. I was terrified of sales, being an accountant, And so he got his samples and took off around Southern California to every shoe store, and he came back about 3 weeks later. He had a huge manila envelope with about 150 business cards and not a single order. And he said, Brian, they tell us we're crazy trying to sell sheepskin in California. And it sounds logical, doesn't it? But it's not the truth, because Australia's climate is identical to Southern California. So that wasn't the reason. And so, but when you're an entrepreneur, you hit a wall, you've got to figure out a way around it or up and over it. And I thought, well, how come all my friends up at Malibu think this is the best idea in the world? And it struck me, oh my God, so many of them had been to Australia on their surf trips and bought 4 or 5 pairs of boots back for their buddies. And so within the surf market, it was really well known. And so Doug and I decided to switch gears and go after the surf shops. And this time he made me go on the road. He was going to do the San Fernando Valley and I was going to do the beach areas. And I can remember driving down to Santa Monica Boulevard to Consurf, was the closest surf shop to me. And I walked in and I got my little bag of boots and a little nylon bag. And I opened them up and he goes, oh, UGG boots, what are you doing with those? And I said, well, we're thinking of importing them into America. He goes, oh my God, what a great idea! All my friends have got them. You're going to be so successful. And I thought, there's the store going, this sales isn't so bad. I went to the next store and he says, oh man, UGG boots, and I'm wearing them. God, you're going to make a fortune. That's the greatest idea. And this happened all the way down, to Santa Monica, Newport, Laguna, all the way to San Diego. And Doug was getting the same thing up in the valley. And so we knew we were going to be instant millionaires, And we finally met back at my house, and it never occurred to us that we hadn't asked for any orders. What was the point? We didn't have any inventory, right? So now we knew we needed inventory. And just like the biggest fluke of all time happened, my roommate overheard us talking about needing capital. He said, hey, there's some guys at my office, that he worked for Chevron. They want to get into some investments. And so just like that, we raised $20,000, which in today's money is about $80,000. So it was a lot of money. And we sent 15,000 down to Australia and ordered 500 pairs of boots. And we waited all the way through in November, and then early December they finally came in. We picked them up from customs, and we ended up, putting all the inventory in our third bedroom, and which is now the international headquarters of UGG, right? And we filled up these huge duffel bags with lots of product, and we now had order pads. And so Doug and I went back on the road. And I can remember going down Santa Monica Boulevard to Con, and I walked in and I got this huge duffel bag. And, okay, Dave, how many do you want? And he goes, oh, Brian, well done, man, but we couldn't sell them in this store. They're way too expensive, and we just sell surfboards and trunks and flip-flops, and you're going to do great in the shoe stores. Oh, shit. Went to the next store. Oh, well done, Brian. But we just sell bikinis and flip-flops and surfboards, and they're way too expensive for us. You're going to do great in the shoe stores. And this started happening all the way down the coast, all the way down to San Diego. And Doug and I finally met back, and we ended up tallying up the orders, and this is the deposit slip from the first year's sales. It was only a couple of months, a month or so, but the first year's sales of UGG. Exactly $1,000. What a fluke! But the interesting thing is that having gone, and persevered and built the business, I ended up writing a book called The Birth of a Brand, which is it's like a roadmap for entrepreneurs, and it's the story of UGG from the aha moment all the way through to selling the company. Great book, very fast read, and the theme of it is that you can't give birth to adults, right? Let me get this working here. The theme of the book is you can't give birth to adults. And what that means is I discovered after years and years and years of doing different businesses, even after UGG, that every business starts out with conception. Someone has the idea, and then they take the first action, which is the birth. So the birth of UGG was actually buying 6 pairs of samples, and then every business just goes into this horrible infancy. And it lies there, and it lies there, and you've got to keep feeding it, and you've got to keep changing the diapers, and every now and again you get a giggle out of it, but it's just the worst period of any business. But eventually, it'll start toddling, which is when the first true believers are out there talking about your product, and the magazines are writing articles about you, and that's a really cool stage. And that quickly goes into the youth phase, where you've got consistent orders coming in, production and deliveries is working, accounting, administration, marketing's all, that's the best phase of any business. And you can run a $20 million business in that youth phase. But if it's a great product or a great service, you're going to hit the teenage years. And can you remember, some of you still look like teenagers to me, but every Saturday night you want to be in every party, it's the same in business. You want to be in every major retailer, and you want to be in every mass distributor, and every huge trade show, and it's really easy to run out of capital and cripple yourself. I almost did that a couple of times with UGG. But eventually the accountants come and put all the controls in, and it becomes a mature business. And what do you think? That would have been a pretty good time to give up, eh? 28 pairs? Okay, where are we here? So I'm going to tell you now what I call my tadpole story. So, obviously we can't pay for me and Doug. So Doug went and got another job, and I was sort of stuck. I couldn't give up because I got 470 pairs in the third bedroom, and all my investors' money tied up, right? So I started doing street fairs and swap meets and anywhere I could find a farmer's market or something. But the best thing I had going was the back of my van at Malibu. I'd go up and surf at 6:30 in the morning, and about 8 o'clock I'd get a coffee and muffin, and then I'd go back to my parking spot on the beach and just open the back of the van up, and I was open for business, right? And it took a little while, but eventually I had this incredible repeat business going with the word of mouth. So it was like equivalent to today what we call a pop-up store, and ended up doing about $6,000 in sales, January, February, March, and then, summer came. So I got my first summer job scraping the underneath of boats at the Marina del Rey. And so it got to be October, and I thought, okay, this year I'm going to advertise. So I hired 2 models, a guy and a girl, and posed them on the beach at Wind and Sea, which is in La Jolla, and had the perfect hair and the perfect clothing, and big, tall, white UGG boots. Was a third of the ad, and sales that year went to about 20,000, and it should have been way more than that. So my next summer job was construction in Bel Air and Beverly Hills, and decided this next fall, okay, I'm going to get better looking models and a more expensive photographer. And so we did, and we posed them on the beach at Wind and Sea, this time with perfect hair and clothing and sunset, and again the big tall white boots, made up the predominant part of the ad. And the sales that year went to about $30,000. And I couldn't figure it out because I'd now got like about 30 or 40 surf shops that were carrying it, but they just weren't selling. And so my third summer job was working as a greenskeeper at a golf course, which was, believe it or not, one of my most favourite jobs ever. And it was like September, October when I finally decided, this business is just too damn hard. Americans don't understand sheepskin. They don't realise how rugged it is, and you can wash it, and it's they think it's hot and prickly and too delicate, and so I had that problem. And the other thing was it was expensive to stock, like to sell a pair of 8s, you had to have from 6 through 12 on the shelf, because you never knew who was coming in, right? So it was expensive for retailers to hold it. So I just got, shit, it's too hard. I'm just going to get rid of the inventory and go to business. And in October every year in San Diego or California, the first storm comes in from the north, and everybody goes, oh, it's winter, right? And I got home from the golf course this October, and I was soaking wet, and I walked into the house, and the answering machine had like 25 messages on it, all from surf shop retailers, and they go, Brian, oh my God, I've had people in the store all day asking for UGG boots, I've run out, can I come and get some more? And every message was the same, and I go, oh, shit, I can't even go out of business properly. So I called up Australia, and I ordered another 500 or 600 pairs, and they started delivering out everything that I had in the warehouse, the bedroom warehouse, and eventually, it just. It took a while to sort of catch up. The trick for me though was to try to figure out this advertising, right? Because I thought, okay, well, shit, I'm going to stay in business. So I was having a beer with one of my surf shop owner buddies, and I was explaining this advertising thing. He goes, oh, shut up, Brian. And he calls out the back to these half a dozen little 13-year-old grommets, who store their surfboards there. And he says, what do you guys think of Uggs? And every one of them, oh man, those Uggs, they're so fake. Have you seen those ads? Those models, they can't surf. And instantly I realised I was sending the wrong message to my target market. Right? And when I saw my ads through their eyes, I was horrifically embarrassed, because they were so bad. And so again, as an entrepreneur, you have to, pivot. I called up a buddy of mine who was running a scholastic surf team in Orange County. And I said, Pete, do you have any young kids going to turn pro soon? Because I need to sponsor someone, but I got no money. I'm going to pay them in UGG boots, And he gave me these two guys, Mike Parsons and Ted Robinson. And instead of hiring an expensive photographer, I just went surfing with them to Black's Beach in La Jolla and Trestles, which is up in San Clemente, San Onofre. And these walks are about a mile to get to the water, and there's always fantastic surf when you get there. And I just figured that every little kid who reads Surfer magazine would be familiar with these two spots. So I just took my little Canon Sure Shot, and took photos of us walking to and from the beach and stuff. And I selected a couple of images and I ran them in the October, November, December Surfer magazine. There it is. And sales went to $220,000, right? Why? Because I finally figured out this marketing and advertising, right? And the rule number one is you never sell your product, right? You sell the features and the benefits and the emotion, and the more emotion you can get into your ads. Here's a perfect example. Look how big the UGG boots are in this photo. Right? They're virtually invisible. But it doesn't matter because every little kid would go, oh God, I'd love to be going surfing with Mike Parsons at Trestles, and if I have to buy a pair of those UGG boots, I will, And that was like, the motivation was coming from the wanting to belong. So the more, if you have a product business or even a software business, for an example, if you have a software program that saves time, you don't show a whole bunch of photos of the engineers working on the computer or the packaging, or you show some guy in the Bahamas drinking a rum drink with all the time he's saving, right? So you have to figure out, how can I get my potential customer to really want to be in, whether it's a Facebook ad or a website or whatever. And so anyway, this was the revelation that I had, and because I sort of specialized well, I wasn't specialized, I was passionate about branding and marketing, right? And what I learned about a brand is your trademark registration is not a brand, right? Your logo is not your brand, right? The product is not your brand, right? The brand is, what do the consumers think of you? And that's what takes a little bit of work to get to. But if you can figure out what it is that you want your potential market to see, and you can deliver it to them in a photograph or an ad like that, that's the secret of branding, is to have people just totally know exactly what you are. So the reason I call this my tadpole story is whoops, let's go back. Whoop. There we go. This sounds really trite, but this is one of the most powerful pieces of philosophy you'll ever see. In fact, in a year's time, you'll forget what I talked about mostly here, but you'll probably remember the tadpole story. And please feel free to take photos of all these slides. I'm going to give you some examples. At the same time I was studying UGG, I was looking at this company. They started off as Blue Ribbon Shoes. They changed their name to Nike, but they'd been importing these nylon running shoes for like 8 years. And I'd seen all of the ads, I'd been watching them grow, and they were just dinking along getting nowhere, And eventually, though, the sport of jogging took off. And all the people who were going to be into jogging started looking at the trade magazines, looking for, well, this Nike's been here, or Nike. And so Nike was the most dominant one in the advertising at that time, and they got sucked into this vortex of demand and went into the millions and the hundreds of millions. and they got into the billions, right? Because of this worldwide shift that they had nothing to do with the creation of. Just they happened to be there, but they've been working tadpole, and suddenly the frog appeared. There's another company in Santa Monica. They've been even longer, nearly 10 years. They were out of England, and they had this little white kid leather dance shoe, and they've been trying to get into the dancing studios all across the country, and cheerleading groups, and all the colleges and high schools, and the sport of aerobics began, right? Completely outside of their control. And so all these people go, what's the best dance shoe? Oh, this Reebok. They start seeing it in all the old magazines. And so Reebok got caught up in this vortex of demand, and went into the millions and the hundreds of millions and the billions. And so that's the sort of thing it takes to get into the billion with a B. So I'm going to jump forward now about 3 or 4 years to where we're doing about 1.5 million in sales. Let me get rid of that. And well, jump forward. We'll get to this. Remember the $20,000? We thought we would never, ever need any more money than that, right? But over the course of me doubling the volume of sales every year, the first investors, they weren't big enough to buy more products, so I had to get bigger investors, and then eventually they didn't want the old investors, so I had to buy them out. And that happened a couple of times, with me as the meat in the sandwich, And then we eventually got to this point where I had a group in Anaheim that were going to be my new investors, and they were already in the distribution business, and they were going to buy a couple of containers of boots, which was really the size of the volume we were getting to. And we did a really good deal, I thought. We were all going to own the company. There was Neil, Paul, and Joe, and they were professionals, and we were all going to own the company 25% each, which was the best I could do at that time. But the best part is that now I had come to love sales. I was going to be full-time on the road selling. They were going to handle all the importing and the ordering and the distribution and shipping, all of the stuff that I didn't like, right? And there was one little proviso though. I didn't actually get my stock certificate issued until I finished the trademark lawsuit that I was in with a company called UGG. And I knew that I'd been in business before them and I could prove it, and so I knew I would win that. So we ended up, doing the deal, and I moved all of the inventory up to Anaheim and spent a week there getting the computers organized and all the paperwork organized so that they could start doing that. And finally it was time to go on the road. So I remember on a Monday morning, I spent the night up in Anaheim after working in the weekend, and I drove down Huntington Boulevard, Beach Boulevard to Huntington Beach, and a really good retailer there, and I walked in, and he goes, "Hey Brian, I heard you sold the company." I went, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I called an order in this morning. They said you don't own the company anymore." I went, "You're kidding me, they said that?" And I couldn't wait to get out of there. I went to the Shell gas station next door, this is before cell phones, right? I called up Neil at Anaheim. I go, "Neil, what the hell are you telling people?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're telling them I don't own the company." He said, "Well, you don't." I said, "Yes, I do. You're my 3 new partners." He goes, "No, you don't get your stock certificate until you..." And I just hung up. And I drove straight back to San Diego, and I pulled out the contract, and I read it, and I realized, shit, technically I don't own the company. And I just went into this huge depression. Like for 3 days, I didn't speak to anybody except my wife. Didn't answer a single phone call, didn't make a phone call. I couldn't even get my thought pattern straight, because I've seen myself as an owner of this huge shoe company one day, and now I didn't even own it. And I think it was like after the third day, that night, I was lying on my back on the floor in the living room, and we were watching TV. Laura was sitting on the couch, and the show finished, and I clicked the TV off, and I rolled over on my stomach and got up on my hands and knees, and I started crawling towards the bedroom. And Laura, who's a really quiet person, she just looked at me and says, "You get up now and walk to bed like a man." She scared the crap out of me. And like, as I'm coming up off the floor, it was like coming out of a fog. And I go, oh shit, there's so much more to life than this crappy little sheepskin company. And that night I slept like a baby, and then next morning I'd get up on, back to Brian Smith, Mr. Positive again, and I remember meditating on the floor, and I'd, trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do with my life. And I got this massive dose of goosebumps. And what I'd been thinking was that, will I be in a, real estate? No. Business broker? Maybe. Accountant? Never. And that's when I got this goosebumps, because I thought, oh my God, sales. I've come to love sales. Now what can I sell? And then I thought, shit, I love UGG boots. And so I ate humble pie, and I called the guys up at Anaheim, and I said, listen, I may never own this company, but I will tell you, I want to come back and I want to get a pair of UGG boots on every single person in America. And so we made an arrangement that they would never tell anybody that I sold the company. And I went on the road, and I got back after the first month, and Neil handed me an envelope, and I opened it up, and it's a check for $5,000. He said, that's your commissions. And I went, oh shit, that's the first money I'd ever pulled out of the business. Right? After 5 years, right? And I went on the road again for the next month, and I got back, and it's a check for $10,000. And another check for $10,000. And that's when I realized this statement here that nearly always, it says sometimes, right? It says always, your most disappointing disappointments will become your greatest blessings. So, how many of you in the room in the past year, either on your personal life or your business life, has something happened that at the time you thought was a huge disaster, and now you look back and say, thank God that happened. Look around, isn't that amazing? I've got to the point now, I'm so blasé, something really bad happens, I go, oh shit, that's good. Now what's good about it, right? And the quicker you can change your mindset from being the victim, oh poor me, why is this so unfair, and wallowing in your pain for months, if you can spin it quickly and look for the solution, you'll be amazed at how much better you can make things, and really fun, and save you the pain, So, let's jump forward now to about, for the next 3 years, I had the best time of the whole UGG business over the next 3 years, because I developed sales reps in 30 different states, and I put up 1.5 million frequent flyer miles over the next 3 years traveling with all these guys, right? And the deal was I fly into Denver, the rep has to have his 10 best customers organized for a visit, and I'd spend a couple of days doing that, and then I'd be off to the next city, and then another 10 customers. But these were the biggest and the best of the retailers in the whole country. So over the course of 3 years, it's 30 reps times 10, that's 300 stores. By 3 years, it's like a repetition of nearly 1,000 visits, And I enjoyed every second of it, because, if I'd be in Idaho, they'd take me fishing, or I was in New Jersey, I'd play golf, it was like, it wasn't even work, and I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission, which back in the 80s was unheard of, And so that was a really great phase. And then it got to the point where Neil, in that 3-year period, Neil bought Joe and Paul out, so now Neil owned 100% of the company. And the other 2 guys had sort of gone their way. And I'd been always coming in doing the marketing and all the advertising for nothing, and I would show up in December. I'd spend a month in the warehouse with all the shipping, even though it wasn't my job. And Neil really got to feel that I was, a real good team player. And he called me up and said, "Hey Brian, come in next Wednesday. I've got the lawyers coming in. You finished the trademark lawsuit. I'm going to issue you 25% of the stock." I was in heaven. And we had another meeting, and we took out life insurance policies. We got a broker in, took out life insurance policies on each other, and bought new company cars. So life was good. And the Sunday before, I was out driving around, and I had a cell phone. Now it's the size of a brick, with a cord down to the car, and it was such a cool thing. And it was my wife, Laura, and she's crying. I go, "Laura, what's the matter?" "Oh, Brian, I can't believe it. Neil's just died." And he'd been in a motocross race and had a massive heart attack, and they couldn't revive him at the hospital. And my world just crashed again, because here I was so close to getting my business, part of my business back. And his widow now owned 100% of it, and she'd never stepped foot inside the warehouse. She had no idea what we were doing. And so I called her up and I said, "I'll be up tomorrow, we'll try and figure out what we're going to do." So bottom line is I committed to her for a year, because this was in January. I committed to go through the whole season and try and save the company and figure out where the company was at, because at the first blush it didn't have any cash around, and we were having it looked like we were going to be having a really good season of sales. And I said, "Look, I won't get a salary. I'll work off all my old commissions, and we'll see where we go." And so this began the longest year of my life. I started off commuting 2.5 hours in the morning and 2.5 hours at home at night. And that lasted about a week and a half, and I started getting the train up on Monday morning to Anaheim and the train back Friday night. And every Friday night I had the most chronic sore throat from being so run down. I knew the first names of all the midnight to 5 a.m. shift at Bob's Big Boy, the coffee shop. And I realised that there was some good things, but best and worst of things, right?